So check this. This is the world's newest, thinnest, and lightest foldable smartphone. This is the Honor Magic V3. Absolutely razor thin. I've used a ton of folding and flipping phones over the past little while. I was just in Europe for the Galaxy Z Fold 6 Flip 6 launch. If you are a fan of folding phones, this is like infinitely better. Unfolded, it is 4.35 millimeters thin, like noticeably thinner than the Fold 6. And when you kind of snap it shut into its like candy bar shape, this is 9.2 millimeters. I'd say the majority of the time when you use a folding phone, it's in its closed form factor shape, in a candy bar shape. This is how you're a bit more productive. You're texting, you're answering emails, you're kind of scrolling through content. You're just day-to-day normal tasks are done like this. When you want to enjoy the larger display, use it for, say, watching content, maybe playing the occasional game, but mostly, binging content. I've used this a ton when traveling on a plane. This is specifically when I've used this device, or when I'm like commuting, when I just want to kick back, maybe watch like Premier League in the morning on my phone. I use it with the larger display, and that's when you can kind of hop into it and you don't feel hindered when you switch between the front display to the inside display. And that's what I really like. And I feel like most foldable phones still really struggle with that. It almost feels like you're compromising a bit, but when you have this folded, it feels like you're using a regular phone. I'll take like my iPhone, for example. It has a very similar footprint. It's pretty much less than a millimeter difference, so it's not really noticeable. And then you have the added bonus of being able to open this up, and now it is literally half of that thickness, and you can use that for the full display for pretty much all of its glory. So the actual screen, the internal display is 7.92 inches. I'll leave the resolutions, they're not exact numbers. Both screens are OLED, but what I actually love about the internal display is the actual fold. Usually on folding devices, you can see a pretty denounced crease, but on this, it is barely visible. When you're watching all sorts of content, you can't really see the difference. I really think Honor is leading the way with their folding devices, and this is kind of the successor to the Magic V2, obviously. Their Magic V2 RSR, their Porsche design one, literally my favorite phone, or my favorite folding phone from last year. A bit biased because of the Porsche connection, but this is just kind of building on that and making it even thinner and even better to use. On the front, obviously the screen, like I mentioned, still OLED. This one has a 20:9 aspect ratio, 6.43 inches, and like I said, it's that perfect sweet spot for still being fully usable, and it isn't weirdly narrow like what we have on the Galaxy Z Fold 6. Around the rest of the phone, even though it's super thin, it doesn't really feel fragile in any way. It's pretty much the same width as the USB-C port on the one side. You've got speakers on the other, volume rocker and on and off button alternating on the opposite sides. And on the back is probably the biggest module that sticks out. So this is their triple camera system. It's the next gen Honor Falcon camera system. So it's got a 50 megapixel main, 50 megapixel periscope, and a 40 megapixel ultra wide. And technically you have two 20 megapixel cameras on the insides, depending on which display you're using it, but definitely the ones on the back are the ones to kind of use. Camera samples have been decent as long as there's enough light. I've just been using it kind of within the city. Once again, kind of comparable to most Android flagship devices. What I do like, Honor has the AI motion sensing capture, essentially just like an AI-based shutter to help capture faster moving objects. So spec-wise, it's rocking the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 platform. You've got two different options for sizes. So 256 gigs that has 12 gigs of RAM, or 512 gigs / a terabyte of storage, you get 16 gigs of RAM. Like I said, for a modern day flagship, everything that I throw at the device, it's nice, quick, and snappy as you would expect. But for some apps using the internal like wider displays, it gives you a bit of a funky aspect ratio, especially for stuff like social media, like Instagram, for example. But even during, say, gameplay, the phone does give you the option that you're switching between resolutions. It technically says they might not be optimized, but some of the games like Genshin Impact, Candy Crush, PUBG that I've been playing have worked totally fine even in the internal display. But the main reason why you're using this is to watch content. So even stuff that I've watched on YouTube looks pretty incredible on this screen, even just catching up on a couple shows. I've actually been watching the entire series of Star Wars Acolyte. Don't want to spoil anything. Not the biggest fan, to be honest. Almost a bit of a letdown in the Star Wars series, but nevertheless watched it on this. But yeah, just kind of thinking about the performance of this, I have definitely pushed it a lot. One of the big things with this is honestly the battery life as well. Comparing it to, once again, the Galaxy Z Fold 6, this has 5150 milliamps of juice versus 4400. So a noticeable difference in terms of how long this phone lasts. And you have the added benefit of this having really fast charging. And what's really nice, unlike said other competitors, Apple as well, this still has like a fairly premium unboxing experience, and you get some nice little goodies out of the box. Obviously, other than the phone, you get an actual power brick. You get a hefty 66-watt wired charger, and this also has 50 watts of wireless charging. You also get an included case as an extra bonus. It's like this faux leather finish, and it actually has a bit of a kickstand on the camera ring. So say you're watching content, you can actually use that, or when it's fully unfolded, you can still kind of use that as a kickstand, depending on which orientation you're kind of using the phone. It's just nice to have, not saying that you have to use it, but definitely included inside the box is a nice addition. Plus, it does protect the camera bump if you're putting this flat, gives it a bit of protection from scratching. So big ups to Honor for that. Like any modern phone, it's loaded with AI features. It has Honor AI Eraser, which is essentially Google's Magic Eraser, where you can circle items and photos that you want to get rid of. This is probably the most practical and most used for me, to be honest. It has Studio Hardcore portrait modes. It has AI portrait enhancement, face-to-face translation, which should help with my abysmal French, and Magic Portal. So you can drag items to other apps by holding down on your selection. Once again, this and probably the Honor AI Eraser are the most used ones for me. So in all, I'd say that Honor's making probably still the best folding phones on the market right now. This one has to be my favorite of the year. This is available in a couple different colorways. So this is the Velvet Black, and funnily enough, the other color options add 4 grams of extra weight. I'm not sure if that's because it has like a faux leather finish on the back, but if you want the sleekest, if you want the lightest, you gotta stick with the black, which is totally fine. And it's funny enough, because these phones are so light, I worked on a social campaign stacking cards. I made this like little card castle. Somehow managed to get this like on the 3rd tier, which just shows how light this phone is. So super, super dope. Let me know if you're interested down below in the comments, if you're a big folding phone person, and if you'd consider getting the Magic V3. I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next ones. Peace.